Hey everyone, it is week 4 of the Summer Paintings Project, and I'm glad to be back from a break last week. Last week, my little brother, Jared, got married, and we were just busy last week with wedding and family and everything, so it was really nice to take that break last week. But we're back at it this week, and the theme this week is going to be paintings of my wife, Katie. I'm super excited to be painting her this week. I love painting Katie, and I've been painting her since like 2007 when we met. And seriously, I could paint 1,000 more paintings of Katie and never get bored of it. She is awesome. She's a fantastic mother and my best friend. So I'm excited for this week. I'm also going to challenge myself with painting under strange or colored light contexts, things that throw off my sort of level of comfort, where I might rely on mixtures that I already am familiar with or mixtures that I'm comfortable with that I would go to normally for things like flesh tones or whatnot. Throwing colored light on the situation changes that completely, and it's going to force me to find new ways to arrive at those mixtures. So let's get to it. Let's paint. All right, so this is painting number 16 of the Summer Paintings Project. Today, I am working on a painting of Katie in a very blue light. So the whole setup for this painting required a really cold light source. And then on the light source, I also put a blue filter, a gel filter over the light source to really create this strong blue cast to the light. So one thing that I'm really wanting to do this week is to challenge myself with painting under strange light circumstances or painting under really unique light contexts. Something that challenges me to not just rely on any preconceived notions about how to make a painting or almost like recipes or go-to mixtures for flesh tones or colors or anything, but something that challenges me to just completely rely on and trust in the process of color mixing and painting. So as a painter, I'm someone who is really driven by color, really driven by light, and how light interacts with surfaces, how light interacts with color to create these new combinations. So in a situation like this, where I'm painting a portrait that has a really intensely colored light hitting the flesh, this kind of situation requires you to suspend what you know about what you're looking at and to instead really trust your eyes and really trust what you're seeing. And I find this process to be really beautiful and really challenging as a person because it requires you to almost humble yourself as you're looking at something and to say, I really don't understand or know what I'm looking at already. I have to kind of put aside what I think I know and what I assume about what I'm looking at, and I have to rely on what is in front of me and to really look and to be open to learning from what I'm standing in front of and what I'm looking at. And I think that as a process for painting is a beautiful process. It's something that I'm really attracted to as an artist. Something that I think is helpful for me as a person, for me to grow and to develop as an artist, and to grow as just a person, to be more sympathetic and hopefully empathetic through these painting experiences, even though they're more visual experiences. These visual experiences of setting aside what I think I know and listening, and in this case, really looking and being patient with what I'm looking at, and looking until I finally start to arrive at understanding. And this is really kind of analogous to a conversation, how a conversation plays out. Nobody likes to have a conversation with somebody that just talks on and never gives the other person a chance to say anything or to share any of their thoughts. If there's no exchange happening in a conversation, usually the person dominating the conversation is just selfish or they're arrogant or they don't respect the other person. They don't find what they have to say is very valuable. Or if we give them the benefit of the doubt, they might just be nervous, and that's just a way that they handle being in a situation where they aren't very confident, and they compensate by just talking endlessly. To be honest, I kind of fall into that sometimes myself, where I am this extrovert, and if I'm in a room with a lot of people who are quiet, I feel like it's my responsibility as the extrovert to fill the silence with something. But all that to say, when you're painting and when you're looking is a lot like listening. And if you look like a listener listens in a conversation, it's a much better experience for the person you're having the conversation with. And it's a lot more giving and a lot less taking. And for me, that's a quality in painting that I really value. And it's something that I wonder and doubt in myself a lot. I sometimes wonder, do I put too much of myself in a painting? Am I dominating the conversation too much with my brushwork or my own vision for what I'm looking at, and I force my vision on something rather than letting it speak to me and work with what it's giving me and be okay with that as a vision for the artwork? So sometimes I do fail, and sometimes I can be humble enough to just listen and to really try to respect what I'm looking at or the person I'm painting and spending time with. So in this painting, I am painting Katie. This week, I'm focusing on making paintings of Katie. Katie is my wife, my partner in life, my best friend, and the most awesome person in my life. She's so giving of herself as a mother. She's so giving of herself as a wife. Just so selfless. A beautiful, beautiful person on the inside and on the outside, if you don't mind me saying so. I think Katie is just a beautiful person, and I could make so many paintings of her. And I've painted her a lot, and it's kind of nice to do a week focused on paintings of her because since becoming parents, it's a little bit more difficult to juggle having her sit for paintings. It's actually really nice to give myself permission to just say, okay, Caleb, Katie is really busy, and it's okay to make some paintings of her from photographs. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm making a painting of her from a photograph that I took. And I think this is a really fun light context because it's doing two things. One, we already talked about the color temperature of the light is really, really cold, very blue colored light. But besides that, half of her face is in shadow and half of her face is in light. So I'm dealing with two elements. I'm dealing with trying to create the form of her face to be able to think of the dimensionality of the form of her face. But I'm also trying to think about how to create this separation of light and dark. But in doing so, to not lose the three-dimensionality of the face. If I can kind of counterbalance both of these two elements together to make a painting that feels believable to what I'm seeing. So this is a really fun challenge for me. I love situations like this where I can't rely on things that I know. The flesh tones I'm mixing, I have no idea how to arrive at those mixtures. I just have to try things out, test it in front of what I'm trying to match, and make adjustments and keep trying until I get close to what I'm trying to achieve as a color. And you'll notice too, like, as I'm just laying in the one side of the face in shadow, the kind of generic overall color, the average color of the shadow, and then the average color of the light, and you compare it to my hand just coming into the frame and painting, how different the flesh tone has become because of the color of that light. It's so different, and I love that. I think that's so interesting because that's what happens to us all the time in our life. When we look at something that we know is like a white wall, but it's getting all of this reflected light or the color temperature of the light hitting it is really different. and it changes the color of that wall, because vision and color are not static things. They're always in flux. Light conditions are always changing, especially when we're relying on natural light. Things are just constantly changing and in flux. The light will get more dull when a cloud passes over. It will get more bright when the sun comes out, and everything changes. And because of that, there's almost this kind of contradiction of logic. We know the name of the color of a thing, like the local color of a wall or the local color of an object. But if a certain kind of light hits it, it changes that object. It changes how we perceive that object. And I think that is just so analogous to life. And this goes back to last week or the week before when we were talking about context and how context plays such a role in painting. At least for me, it plays such a huge role, this idea of context. Where am I and what kind of condition am I in? What kind of light condition did I come from? And how does that affect my perception of what I'm looking at? We've all experienced this in different ways. Even when we revisit a place that we used to go to as a child, and we have all of these really vivid memories of a place as a child, and then we go back there. For example, your elementary school. If you go back to your elementary school as an adult and see it, and see those same hallways, maybe you're able to actually go in to see one of the classrooms that you were in as like a third grader or a second grader, and then you realize how different it is as an adult, because you're coming from such a different context now. You've lived so much more life. The furniture is no longer your size. It's the size of furniture that you would expect for little kids. And so everything just feels so different, even though nothing's really changed maybe. Sure, they update the classroom and things get updated, but the size of the room is the same. Maybe there's similar furniture in the room. The hallway looks the same to you, but it feels so different. And that's that idea of context and how much our experiences and contexts play a huge role in how we perceive everything. Two people can be looking at the exact same thing and have completely different feelings or life experiences that color the way they perceive what's in front of them. And I think that is a beautiful thing about painting, something that you could say is unavoidable, that artists bring their subjectivity to the content or the subject matter of the painting that they are creating, and you get a unique vision for what you're looking at. You get to have a glimpse of someone else's context of what you're looking at. So this painting was a blast to do. I'm honestly really excited to be doing portraits this week. I love painting people. I love the process of painting a person, especially when a person is sitting for you. But for me, I think I know Katie well enough that I'm getting those same kinds of feelings of painting from life, even working from a photograph of Katie. And it's just such a beautiful process, painting a person. Another thing that I challenged myself to do on this painting was to paint Katie's freckles. It's in the middle of summer right now, and Katie gets these beautiful freckles on her nose and on her cheeks. And I have never really attempted to paint freckles on flesh before. So I was like, I'm going to just go for it. And it was actually a lot of fun to try to create that surface effect. Usually I'm so busy just trying to get the overall value or shape of blocks of different planes on the face to create the sense of volume and the sense of form of a head. And so it was actually really nice to think about the surface of the flesh as well, and the kind of markings that are on the flesh of a person. So that was really nice to be able to work on. Another thing, like right at the end, I realized like I totally had left the back of the head too shallow, and it was really messing with my sense of how accurate the head was looking. So I'm glad I caught that in the end. The back of the head needed a little bit more than I was giving it, and that fixed the perspective in the front of the face. So that's today's painting. If you have any questions about the process of this painting, definitely feel free to send me a message and I'll try to answer any questions that any of you might have. And I'll see you back here tomorrow where we're going to be painting another portrait of Katie. Have a good day, everyone. Take it easy. Bye.